to stream the things in proper way. But now, second speaker is with us. He is delivering the webinar on guidelines for setting up a veterinary radiation facility. This topic we have chosen that there is demand from field veterinarians, academicians, and practicing veterinarians because they are willing to start their own radiation facility. I am sure the presentation going to delivered by Dr. Chaudhary sir will be helpful for them to set up radiation facility in their clinic or in their daily practice. I request Dr. Pradeep Chaudhary sir to deliver his webinar on guidelines for setting up of veterinary radiation facility. Thank you very much. Dr. Chaudhary sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Galdar. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really, I appreciate first of all the efforts taken by Indian Society of Veterinary Medicine for having such a nice webinar series during this lockdown period for their members. Really appreciate their efforts. At the outset, I also thank Dr. A.S. Ranade, Associate Dean, Mumbai Veterinary College, Dr. Nauriyal, Dr. Ramaprabhu, and my team from Veterinary Nuclear Medicine Center, Dr. Gaikwad, Dr. Galdhar, and Dr. Kaustubh for their efforts in making this webinar. Yeah. I'm going to speak on guidelines for setting up veterinary radiation facilities. Whenever there are radiations are there, everybody has scared you all with different aspect, how to protect yourself and all. And hence there are a lot of regulations are there for radiation facilities. So I will be going to speak about or in next few slides about our experiences in setting up the nuclear medicine facilities in Mumbai. So radiation usage, everybody has given, my earlier speakers have given the details about it, but I will just brush up the few things about the usage of radiation. So mainly there are three uses: diagnosis of the diseases, therapy of the diseases, treatment of the diseases, and in case of the research, biomedical research for the advancement of knowledge and developing novel therapies and diagnostic agents. So if you see the radiation usage, there are several uses are there. In all fields, almost there is a use of radiation is there. Yeah. And in case you can see here, in medical applications, there are mainly the four categories: the radiotherapy, diagnostic radiology, nuclear medicine, and research applications. So we will cover one by one as it's a very vast topic, and any facility you would like to start, it totally depends on what exactly you are intending to. So in case of a diagnostic one, diagnostic is the one which is most important, and many places diagnostic facilities has been started and there are less regulatory issues are there with diagnostic facilities. We as a vet, we are quite familiar with the X-ray radiography. Several X-ray units are there in a country where vets are taking out the X-rays in case of diagnosis of various diseases and mainly in the orthopedic ailments. Computed tomography is also a part, kind of a X-ray, but these images are acquired in 360 degrees, so we get three-dimensional views. Yeah. In X-ray, we just get two-dimensional view, but in computed tomography, we get three-dimensional view. So the quantitation of the lesion, size, its behavior, and many more morphological aspects which are not possible on X-ray are very much visible using computed tomography. In case of nuclear medicine, SPECT and PET, these are the two modalities are there. Single photon emission computed tomography and positron emission tomography. These both the modalities where the radioisotopes are administered intravenously. Yeah. So that subject become radioactive. And these isotopes are mainly in case of SPECT, we have already learned that 99M technetium is a workhorse for the SPECT department. And for PET, F18, fluorine 18 is one of the isotope. It's a very ultra short-lived isotopes. Its half-life is just 110 minutes. So that is the one which is a workhorse in PET department. And here we get information which is more physiological, and also we go towards the molecular insights of the disease. So using this molecular technique, molecular imaging, we can visualize and quantitate the events, molecular events happening at the cellular level. So these are very sensitive kind of imaging modalities, and hence their use in future is going to increase heavily, because we are leading towards a customized medical treatment where we need to know the cellular level what is happening with the disease. When we talk about the CT and X-ray, these are more anatomical modalities where density changes are more important. And if you see the density changes, which comes much later than the molecular or physiological changes. First, the molecular changes happens in a cell, then physiological changes in that organ system, and then there are density changes. So you can understand how using these technologies we can diagnose, trying to diagnose the disease at early stage. And once the disease is diagnosed early, we are going to treat it early so that there will be a better control over the disease and better treatment efficacy. And that's how the nuclear medicine is going to increase in future. So one more thing is there, in vitro assays are there, which are also used in veterinary field, which are basically for the thyroid hormone estimation as well as to evaluate certain metabolic disorders. So here in case we use the iodine 125 as well as phosphorus 32, sulfur 32, these are used. And these labs are also quite common in veterinary field. So in case of therapy, the radiation are used in a two ways as we discussed. In external beam radiation, there are three categories are there where cobalt-60 teletherapy unit is there, which is having a source cobalt-60, which is a high energy gamma radiation source. And this machine has been developed indigenously. I will show you the picture of that machine in next few slides. Indigenously by Bhabha Atomic Research Reactor, scientists from BARC, and now that is being used all over the country. Even various neighboring countries have the cobalt-60 teletherapy unit. This is a very much cost-effective kind of a unit as well as a very robust kind of a unit. Then there is a linear accelerators. Linear accelerator is one of the advanced version of the external beam radiation treatment where there is a source of radiation can be controlled. It is the radiations are produced in accelerator, and then whatever the energy you require, we can use it for the treatment purpose. And the next advanced version of these machines are tomotherapy. Tomotherapy machines are precisely treat the lesions with minimum or no toxicity to the neighboring organ, neighboring tissue, neighboring healthy tissue. So the lesions in a brain, lesions in abdomen, lesions in lungs, thoracic cavity, they are being treated with tomotherapy very accurately and precisely. And basically while doing this scan, all the time whenever the patient is being treated, the CT scan is being done and appropriately, precisely, the marks are being put in radiation therapy planning machine system, and the radiation is delivered very accurately to the lesions so that there is a minimal toxicity to the normal healthy surrounding tissue. Then there are brachytherapy is there. Brachytherapy is another way of delivering the radiation in a very close, near distant areas. So there are wires are there are pins are there are pellets are there with radioactive sources, and they are used or implanted in the lesions, and they are kept there for certain amount of time, and they are removed after that, and they gives enough dose to the surrounding tissue, and that gives the cytocidal effect. So in this case, the cesium 137, iridium 192, iodine 125, these are all used in this purpose. Also the P52, P32, the loco-regional brachytherapy, that I will show you the slide which we have used in one of the animal case. Then radioisotope therapy in nuclear medicine, again it's intravenous injection of the isotope which are beta emitters or alpha emitters. Alpha emitters are also coming as a future therapeutic agents because they can produce the high ionization here. So these are injected intravenously and they go to the target areas, and there they irradiate the surrounding area and kills the cancerous malignant tissue. These therapies are also used for a bone pain palliation. So when you cannot cure but you have to take care of the pain, so in those situations, the palliative therapies are advised. So external beam as well as nuclear medicine radioisotope therapies are used as a palliative one in case of a metastatic bone pain. So here the lutetium 177, holmium, yttrium, these are the high energy beta radiation radioisotopes are there. Those are used for palliative purpose. So whenever you have any to start any facility in your mind, you need to know which are the isotopes you are going to use, and at the same time you should know the characteristics of those isotopes in terms of their half-life, in terms of the radiation output per unit source, specific activity of that isotope, then photon energy of those isotopes, and also the method of production of those isotopes. If they are generator produced, then you have to keep a space in your department to have a generator. If they are cyclotron produced, cyclotron is nothing but the nuclear reactor and which produces the isotopes of medical importance here. And if you are going to get the isotopes from outside, then in that scenario, the area, the logistics are totally different. So as I said, ionizing radiation, we have already seen in past speaker have enlightened on those ionizing radiation. So alpha, beta, gamma, all are producing ionization. But the degree of ionization is varies as per their amount of capacity they have in them. So alpha is a helium nucleus and they have the highest ionization power, and that's why they are the heavier one because there are alpha helium nucleus is there. So their penetration is less, but the energy deposition is very high. So alpha has the highest ionization. Beta are negatively charged particles and they can also cause ionization, but at the same time they have a higher penetration than alpha. And gamma are electromagnetic radiations. Gamma and X-rays both are electromagnetic radiation. They differ in their origin and they pass through completely from the body without any absorption, causing minimal ionization. And that's the reason they are mostly used for the purpose of diagnostic modalities, diagnosis of the diseases. So if you think about starting any facility, you need to know to have assessment and evaluation for setting radiation facility. So in case of this assessment, you need to know the national needs, what kind of diseases you have, how many time, how many facilities are there in a country, then what is the distribution of countrywide facilities in the region, then what is the basic preclinical and clinical requirements for this facility, then assessment of the institution's infrastructure and resources. So do we have enough infrastructure available to make those kind of facilities? Are there enough human resources available? If the expertise is available, all those questions are very much important. And on this basis, we can have a quite good insight which facilities can be started. So in terms of planning of the facilities, we need to know the objectives, like whether we want to go for a basic modalities or we want to go further with a three-dimensional modality or even a molecular modalities, or treatment facilities, which kind of animals we are going to treat, how many procedure we want to follow, how many units we are going to keep in that facility. All those things becomes very much important. And on that basis, your whole project, your whole layout of the facility, designing of the facility is getting influenced. The availability of the space is the most important criteria. Then equipment to be placed, whether diagnostic or therapeutic. Then radionuclides, as I said, availability of radionuclides. Are you going to get it from outside, or you will have a generator, or you will have a cycle? Human resource, and the most important is the availability of the funds. These are all very kind of a costly kind of technologies, and a lot of expertise is required. Hence, the availability of the fund for these projects is very much important. Yeah. So radiation facilities, whenever you think about it, this is different various steps are there. As I explained you, the program design and then program implementation, then design of the facility. When you decide, yes, we are going to have X-ray units, you are going to have CT or NM or radiation, accordingly you will design a facility, and then you will go for a selection of the equipments which are best suitable for cost as well as for your own applications. And then the installation of the machines, then their safety checks, initial radiation survey, those things comes into a picture. So if you consider, I have written there the regulatory approvals. The regulatory approvals are very much important at the time of designing a facilities. Yeah. So whichever equipment you are going to buy, whichever isotope you are going to use, those things needs to be approved by the regulatory authorities. And then later, it's just a work execution process. After getting approvals, acceptance testing of those machines, whether they are really calibrated well or not, is the dose delivery is proper or not, because a small minute dose which is change in a dose delivery is going to give a different kind of clinical outcome. So that's the reason acceptance testing of the machine is very much important. Then commissioning of these machines with a clinical use, for clinical use it comes, and then final report documentation, and then comes a training of the staff and the safe use of the system, and then you finally goes into the routine functionality of the system. So as I mentioned, there are regulatory approvals. So who gives these regulatory approvals? So there is a national agency which is a apex agency called as a AERB, Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, and that agency controls or regulate all the radiation usage in throughout the country. In industry, in medical usage, in research, all radiations usage is being controlled and regulated by them. So we have to register with this agency at the beginning, and then we can put our layout plans. I will tell you the stepwise things, how they work. And here is, you can see the message from there. The safety is everybody's business. It's not a single person's responsibility. It's not the responsibility of a dean or an in charge of that facility or a radiation safety officer. So it's safety is everybody's business. So everybody is equally responsible. And this is the message is being flagged on their website in on the National Safety Day in this year. So just a background of AERB. AERB was constituted in 1983 as the agency to carry out the regulatory and safety functions identified under the Atomic Energy Act 1962. And this act envisages utilization of atomic energy and radiation technology for societal benefits, ensuring their safe deployment in line with the well-established requirements and international benchmarks. So AERB is functioning since last 35 years, and their just mission is to ensure the use of ionizing radiation and nuclear energy in India under its purview does not cause any kind of safety things to the people and the environment. This is the most important job is AERB is doing here. So institution registration is the most important thing. So here is the screen you will find. And now in recent past, they have changed their all procedure. Earlier it was manual, so getting a lot of time in getting licenses, but now they have digitized the whole process and they are giving e-licensing. So this is called as a e-licensing of radiation applications. So it called as a ELORA in short form. So ELORA system has been in place now since last 4 or 5 years, and this is a wonderful thing. Everything you need to do it online, and you will get the replies online. You will get the licenses online. You will get the certificates online. Yeah. So this is one of the best system they have incorporated now and reduced the time of this whole department. So here there is a drop down menu where you can see that I am an applicant, I am a radiological medical practitioner, I am a patient, all those things are there. You have to select appropriate kind of a drop down menu and go further. So e-licensing, you can facilitate the submission of your layout. You will get the licenses, you will get the registration, even RSOs, nomination can be done online and you will get their approvals online. So in case of radiation facilities, if you go in the website, there are 4 or 5 applications are there, menus are there, like application in industry, application in medicine, in research, and so on. So here, if you choose application in medicine, you will find these 4 tabs. One is radiotherapy, then is nuclear medicine, diagnostic radiology, and blood irradiators. So appropriately, you can choose one and go further. Particularly for X-ray, you can use the diagnostic radiology, which is, I think, the most common kind of a modality, and the most of the veterinarians are familiar with that, and they might be interested in having the X-ray unit first. Yeah, so they can go to the diagnostic radiology menu, and they can go further and have more details about it. So in case of guidelines and other regulatory documents, you can see here now the application for license for cooperation for operation into bracket research, veterinary and others. This is the most important thing. They have AERB has incorporated considering the increasing use of radioisotopes and radiation in veterinary field. And that's why this has been incorporated in this. So there are even diagnostic radiology facilities are there. You can see there are the drop down menus are there. You can select the the most appropriate one. So the site identification, once you are registered with them, you have to identify the site at your place, the rooms for housing diagnostic X-ray or other units and related equipment shall be located. And this should be always away from the high occupancy areas where the less crowd is there. Such isolated areas you have to select. You have to manage your workflow. The patient coming inside, patient going outside, there shouldn't be overcrowding, and they should be away from your general hospital, general departments, or general departments in the college, where it's like extension department. It cannot be just next to the X-ray unit here. So similar kind of thing. The logistics are important in this. Many times during surgeries, we need X-rays. So immediately you can have X-rays. So which facilities should be adjacent to the X-ray units? Those needs to be understand well. That workflow needs to be set, and accordingly the site can be identified. And this is how then you have to register in your institute should be registered in ELORA system. And these are the guidelines are there. I'm just showing you what are the details. So many details they ask you, and you have to keep those details ready while filling up these applications. Yeah. So here you can see the employer details also you have to fill. Then there are a lot of attachments you have to give. It's at the beginning it's quite tedious and time consuming, but it takes your all details, and that then never you are being asked about these details. So these are the various attachments you need to fulfill. The equipment needed to perform this task like imaging or radionuclide generators, producing isotopes, treatment planning, treatment delivery, quality assurance, all those things you need to really decide, and accordingly you have to fill those information in ELORA system. So structural and shielding design, this is one of the most important thing. Any layout for radiation facilities, Structure and shielding, you have already learnt about is time, distance, shielding, how we want to prevent ourselves, safeguard ourselves from the radiation. Similarly, the facilities creating or generating radiation, those radiation should not get escaped from those facilities and reach to outside and exposed to the common public or common people who are not really part of that facility. Yeah. So structure and shielding design is one of the most important, and there are guidelines. NCRP guidelines are there. There are very detailed guidelines are there on this National Council on Radiation Protection and Measurement. So these guidelines are very much helpful. One can have a look at it and then think about it. Then in design consideration, as I said, isolated rooms. Then if you are using fume hood, there has to be excellent exhaust to the fume hoods. And the fume hood exhaust should at least go above the tallest building in the vicinity. If there is a residential area, then tallest building you have to identify, and that exhaust has to be go outside above that. Then non-absorbent surface walls at all the areas in department, so that if there is any spillage is there, that should not affect the decontamination process. So that is very much important. Aluminum flooring is very much important just for the in case of decontamination process. And proper shielding is the most important thing for the occupational hazard as well as the hazards to the public. Yeah. So radiation detectors, contamination monitors should be kept in place so that whenever it is necessary, it will be available. And at the same time, those contamination monitors and detectors should not get contaminated. They should not be placed in the facilities where you are actually working. So they should be always away from the facility. Otherwise, if they get contaminated, there is no use of those detectors. So standard specification symbol should be kept on all the labs, whichever is handling the radioisotopes. Then in case of radiography, as I have been told that there is a lot of interest in X-rays, so I'm just focusing more on X-rays. The X-ray units are operated in the range of 50 to 150 kVp. Yeah. So the walls of those X-ray unit or X-ray facilities should be very thick, so the beam cannot really go out or scatter. Even a scatter cannot go out. Yeah, and reach to the the dark room or reach to the public area or reach to the waiting area. So hence additional system must be provided with lead walls. Movable lead walls are available, so those also can be used. And in case of veterinary patients, as in the first lecture you must have seen that always the animal handlers or caretakers, they are holding the animal while doing x-rays, so they are getting exposed to it. So there has to be some kind of a more precautions needs to be taken. And if you can anesthetize those animals and take the x-rays, there is no situation, very safe situation like this. This is how it needs to be done. The operation of x-ray equipment, one most important message from here is, unless and until there is a license for operation, then only you can use the x-ray equipment. So you have to get your x-ray unit registered and then get license to operate that machine, and then only you can use that facility. So this is very much important, and that's the reason the AERB's role comes into a picture as a competent authority, and you have to register this. Then room size and shielding. So appropriate area to facilitate easy movement of the staff and patient positioning is very much important in terms of veterinary patients, because all the dogs are not really docile. So sometimes we have to struggle to get the dog inside the facility, then also to get him on couch. So that's the reason we should have enough space for movement and enough space for positioning and restraining the animal prior the X-ray procedure. Then appropriate shielding, as I said, that walls, doors, ceilings, and floors, that needs to be really having appropriate shielding so that no radiation can escape from that. The doses received by workers, radiation worker as well as public, should not exceed the annual effective doses. all just before me, Dr. Gaikwad has mentioned about what are the the annual doses exposure limits are there. So one should not cross those limits, and that are being noted, measured on your TLDs. So whenever you return the TLD, your report comes. What was your dose exposure in last 3 months? And if it is exceeding, then AER becomes again into a picture, and they will ask you, where have you used this? What have you done? Whether there was any procedural issue was there, because of that there was exposure, or there was a fault with the equipment which is calibrated but which is producing higher amount of x-rays. So all those details are investigated, and on that basis the proper action is taken, so that the worker, occupational workers, then public is safeguarded from such kind of events. So dark rooms are now in history now, basically because all the systems are digitized and all data is digital data. So dark rooms are not much in use, but in research still they have an importance, because we use a lot of doing experiments. We need a dark room. These rooms, X-ray rooms, shall not be less than 18 meters square, 180 square feet, or you can say 200 square feet for general purpose. And how many units you are going to put there, that is also important. And there shouldn't be more unit in one facility, because you cannot use all the units simultaneously and optimally. So one room, one unit is the criteria followed many places. So this is how the setup is there. You can see the walls, how thick walls are there. Where you cannot have a thick walls, you can use movable lead shieldings. So this is again about the dark room. X-rays should scatter should not reach to the dark room and spoil your scans. So this is a typical kind of X-ray room, where you can see the couch, where you can see the X-ray generator, the X-ray tube, and the X-rays, the tube is facing to the floor so that it goes to the earth. So there is no beam coming on any kind of a wall or any place, and it can escape from there. You can see the room for operator, and there is a small window also can be seen, where he can look at the positioning, look at the the person who is there inside, and he will make sure that all are outside, and then he will just put the X-ray tube on for a few seconds here. So in case of diagnosis, we have seen X-ray, now CT. CT is coming up, very much popular now in veterinary patients, because it has a lot of utilities in cancer. So here I'm just giving one example of a dog having epileptic seizure and losing weight all the time. And when we did a CT scan, contrast CT scan, we have noticed that there is a big mass in a pituitary region, and you can see here the X-ray gantry, and where on couch that pet dog is lying there, and there is a positioning, or fit is there, which has been made so that dog can stay, keep his head in one very much particular position, so that this data can be used, CT data can be used on a tomotherapy machine to identify a location of the lesion, as well as to deliver the dose of radiation specifically to that area, because it's in a brain, lesion is in a brain. So we very very keen to save the all healthy surrounding tissues. So this is another example. This is the first scan in, you can see even in a country, the bone MDP scan done in a dog with osteosarcoma, and you can see the very old kind of a picker system is there. The scan was done in 1996, and where this is a functional imaging, so you can see how the blood flow is there to the tumor, the mass. So you can take the surgical decision whether the requirement of blood will be there for this or not, how vascular the tumor mass is there. So much of information you receive from the functional bone scan. Bone scan is usually done in 3 steps. There are delayed scans are there. One is the immediate blood flow study is there, vascular scan, vascular phase, and then there is a phase, a delayed phase is there, where you can see the bone metastasis. Here you can see a multiple metastasis in a spine as well as in a ribs. Here, so you can take the decision about even amputation or even treating the dog with very aggressively when there are multiple metastatic lesions are there everywhere. There's really a very less chances there that you can do much more. So you have to be take other option of palliative intent. So at least you can minimize the pain. So the other area in radiation therapy is external beam radiation, and what I mentioned to you about the Cobalt 60 unit. This is what is that unit is. It's a very simple, compact unit. At the top, there is a Cobalt 60 source is there. Whenever the system is on, this isotope source comes out and delivers the radiation. This is a pouch where the animal can be sedated and kept. In radiation treatment also, the animals needs to be anesthetized. No one can be there in that facility while the radiation is on. So it is mandatory, and no one can just stay inside the facility when the radiation is on. So that's the reason we have to sedate him properly and also monitor the patient or a subject from outside on a CCTV, so that if in case there is a change in position or there is a movement of animal, you can just stop the radiation dose and go inside, keep the reposition the animal, and again start the remaining treatment. So this is indigenously developed system by the BRC scientist. Patient positioning, as I have mentioned, this is how we position the patient on a couch. You can see the strap around the animal, and there is also a orfit is there. This is called as an orfit. They can take the shape when this is a thermo labile plastic, where you can just make the mask the way you want and position it properly, so that next time whenever the animal is coming for the treatment, you really don't have to worry about the positioning. You have indicators on that orfit, place it properly. There are anatomical locations are there. You can match with that, and you can start the radiation treatment. So this is the dog. Cedar was treated on a Liniac system. Now I am going from Babatron to Liniac system. So this is the Liniac system. This is a collimator of Liniac. There was a dermatofibrosarcoma on the tip of nose, and which was treated with linear accelerator with a low energy electrons. Our intention was that this energy of the electron should be low. Cobalt, you cannot control the energy, but here in Liniac, you can control the energy. So energy control was very much important because we wanted to give only superficially radiation. As below that, there was a nasal cartilage, and if nasal cartilage is damaged with radiation, it causes radiation necrosis, which is a permanent kind of a damage. So considering this clinical issue, we treated these dogs on a Liniac. And then you can see also the post-radiation, how the changes were there, and there was a very good kind of a clinical control in this disease here. So treatment facilities, if you see that, we have seen Cobalt, we have seen Liniac, and now we are going more precise treatment area, which is a tomotherapy machine, where every time when you treat the patient, the CT scan is being done, and we evaluate the cancer mass, and again on that basis, we precisely deliver the dose to that cancer lesion. Yeah. So here, this is the dog with a the lesion in a brain. She was treated. Her name was Amber. She was treated with 30 gray dose in 5 fraction. Usually we give a weekly fraction. So she was treated on a tomotherapy machine. And this is a very exclusive kind of a high-end advanced system. In India, we have so similar kind of only 5 machines, or maximum by now, if current position, I must be less than 10 machines in a whole country. So we were fortunate to treat our animals using these machines because ours is a research institute, and a lot of consideration is there for the research and coming from veterinary science. So another field area we discussed about loco-regional brachytherapy. Yeah. So here in case we have used the P32 as a brachytherapy agent, and which has a energy and you can deliver that energy in few millimeters level. So this was delivered, and almost 20 gray dose was given to this patient, and the very good clinical control was achieved. So in case of mast cell tumors, they respond so well to the radiation. You can see the before and after treatment pictures where there was a complete control was there of the disease. So this is one of the most aggressive tumor, but if it is treated in time, there's a very good control is there and good survival is there. Yeah. So radiation facilities are very much important, and we must look forward to have many more facilities coming up dedicated for the animals. So coming back to the layouts now of these facilities. So ERB handles all the time, they handle the human facilities. So for animal facilities, there is a tough and challenging job because animal cannot be restrained, animal cannot be really told to obey the orders. So that's the reason we have to make our facilities in such a way that there is no compromise with the animal radiation safety and radiation safety to the public as well as occupational thing. Here you can see a central portion where there is a flooring area is there, there is a way is there where animal can go directly into the drug dose administration area, and then after that he can go to the imaging area. And when the imaging is over, he can come back and without getting into interacted with any waiting patients can go out. So this is how the plan was done, and this is a plan of layout of the VNMC at Parel, which was approved way back in 2004. So this is the facility which I am mentioning, that the first facility in country, and here it's GE gamma camera is there. It's a SPECT imaging camera detector system, and you can see there is a trolley and animal is lying, animal is sedated, and you can see the flooring here. I have already told you the flooring has to be linoleum flooring and all, but in case of animals where the drugs radioisotopes are administered, so there you need to have flooring in such a way that animal shouldn't get slipped first thing, and secondly if there is a contamination we should able to wash it out thoroughly. So that's the reason this special flooring was done. Once you go with the camera specifications everything, then there is a product data and specification sheets are there. You must check those sheets. Purchase agreement with the vendors, that is very much important, that how long they are going to give the support, because these are the high-end equipment. So you need to have kind of a very good support from service support from these vendors for several years till the good life of that machines are there. So these are the agreements, these are the main steps after the installation and after the you select the machines. So this is the typical plan of a human nuclear medicine center. As you can find it on AERB website, is very typical layout. So here you can see that how humans can go. We have to modify the layout plan according to our requirements, according to our logistic workflow. So this is another layout I am showing you, which is of preclinical imaging. So preclinical imaging is one of the most important area in research now. So there we can do a PET, SPECT, CT in rodent models, mouse models. So this is the upcoming area, and many veterinarians are interested to join research. They can really, have kind of facilities now in future in country. In 2010, we have established the first facility in preclinical imaging having PET, SPECT, CT on a single axis, and now there are many more than 5 facilities are there in a country where you can find such kind of, the preclinical imaging, and the vets are taking care of those facilities. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for the vets in imaging field. So this is how the typical scanner looks like. This is a self-shielded scanner, so no need to much worry about it. The radiation dose and radiation exposure. Here we have a then SPECT and CT together in the middle. And you can see the yellow line in the picture yellow line when the system is on. You can see the workstation, those monitors there, those are useful for equation, making the equation protocols of the system. And you can see the monitor, one monitor on top of the scanner, where when the animal goes inside, animal is sedated and under the influence of isoflurane gaseous anesthesia. So if there is, in case any problem with the anesthesia flow is there, and if animal is moving, you can see in the monitor, because once the animal is inside, it is the interlocks are there, the doors will be locked, you cannot see the animal. So that's the reason the cameras are given, and you can check animal is resting on that small tiny couch here. So there is a connected isoflurane gaseous system is there. One more plan I am going to show. It is a very complex plan. Please don't get confused with this. But I would like to say this is one of the upcoming facility at our place, which is called as the RRU, Radiological Research Unit, and the basement where we have multiple kind of a units. That's the reason you see a lot of complexities in this. So we will be going to have a cyclotron, we will be going to have a linear accelerator, we'll have one Babatron unit, we will have brachytherapy unit, which will be used exclusively for teaching and training purpose, as well as to cater the services for the animal patient. There will be also a one gamma camera for animal imaging. So this facility is in construction phase, planning phase, so it will take some more time, but this is how the medical cyclotron looks like. This kind of cyclotron will go sit inside that concrete bunker, and this is a very thick concrete is there. You can see here, there's a huge concrete walls are there, and it basically generates radiation. So we need to have such a concrete to prevent that. And on the top of that cyclotron, there is a garden area. So garden area means it is an area where no one can just go there. Yeah. So there won't be any occupancy on the top of the cyclotron. So these are the logistic issues. So you need a lot of space when you plan for such high radiation generating facilities you create. And because of cyclotron, there are several other labs are there, like quality control labs for the radioisotope, hot lab we call it. Then there are tracer labeling labs, tracer synthesis labs are there. Then dispatch room for those activity. You can see the lead shielded container there. Then there is a staff room is there. Then the staff which are working exclusively for these facilities will just come for operation during the operation of these facilities, and then they will go back to their other offices. Then there is a hand and foot monitor is there. After leaving, you have to check your hand and foot and monitor for any contamination, and then only you can go out from these facilities. There is a central area is also there which monitors all the activity levels in the whole facility. So this is very much important. So these are the radiation symbol. All my colleagues have given a better idea about it. Personal monitoring equipments, you have to use them. This is a chest TLD, then wrist TLD, wrist batch, where you administer the drug, radioisotope, you have to use this. There is a personal dosimeter. So these are the most important thing to know your exposure. So you have to wear them whenever you are in a radiation facilities, whether you do experiment or you don't do experiment, but when you enter radiation facilities, there is a radiation. So it needs to be measured. Your exposure needs to be measured. So this is how this is being done. So radiation survey meters needs to be in a place. There are interlocks are there for the facilities. There are warning lights are there. Emergency switches are there. So these are all important kind of monitoring devices which should be in place. It's not that only on the first day of functioning they should function and later there is no need. So they should function all the time when we use these facilities. So education, this is the most important thing I want to touch upon. What we are doing now, we are making you aware about the radiation usage in veterinary field, and that is what we are trying to impart the education through the webinar. Yeah, and this is in this field. It is a self-training. Many interested vets, they have joined this webinar, so they are trying to get themselves well equipped with advancement in knowledge, advancement in the technology. There are vendors who will train you for their machines, for their technologies, because they want their sales is very much important. So vendors are training. Then there's an in-house training program, like you see here, Veterinary Nuclear Medicine Center. We all, the working there are imparting our knowledge. This is kind of an in-house training program we have built to make our professional colleagues aware about what we are doing and what can be done further being a team. And AERB is also interested in teaching and training all the people who are using radiation. So one should not have a phobia about radiation. They should handle radiation with much more care and confidence. So that's why AERB is also making people aware about radiations, aware about safety and radiation protection. So they have a knowledge corner on that, their website, and this knowledge corner, there are columns for student as well as professional. So I must recommend, I must recommend you to go there and visit this. So use information on radiations, and a lot of basic issues are being, mentioned there. There are videos are there, their audio visual things are there. So I think you all can just visit that site and find out what is interesting to you. So the last slide of summarizing this talk, it's a small kind of thing that setting a new radiation facilities is always exciting, always exciting. But every step has many more challenges. I could able to explain you very few of them, but there are a lot of challenges are there. And during this taking care of those challenges, the care and diligence should be exercised in each and every step, so that you don't get repented in future when the facilities are being constructed and built, and the time commitment and money can be substantial, and errors and oversights can be costly. So this is a message, and key points is exposure should be kept always as low as reasonably practicable, not even achievable, practicable. Because in animal veterinary field, we have to be more practical with our patients. So reasonably practicable. So wherever it is important, you can take one step further, but see the practicalities of that. And there is no safe level or exposure to ionizing radiation. This is what is most important thing which one must understand. So there is no safe level. So every time we have to try to avoid it as much as practical to us. And with this, I'm just going to show this small one slide to you, where this was the first step towards radioisotope application in veterinary practice was made by these three gentlemen and madam also. So you must be knowing all those things. Dr. Anil Kakodkar, who was our Atomic Energy Commission Chairman, Dr. Sherikar, who was our Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Madam Samuel, who is walking behind. She's the lady who was heading our Institute Radiation Medicine Center, and she was a biomedical group director, and full of energy and inspiration to set up this center. With full support she has done. Unfortunately, she passed away very recently in month of May, and I really dedicated my this talk to her. Her whole love for animal, whole love for this nuclear medicine as a subject. And I thank the people at that time who helped us in this whole process of setting up this facility. Along with Dr. Samuel, there were Dr. Ramurthy, Dr. Soni, Dr. Rajan. They're the experts from BRC. They helped us. BRNS was generous enough to fund us and got convinced that yes, this is the most important area, thrust area, and we must support. So these people, they really help us a lot. And our BBC team, including Dr. Sherikar and Dr. Samad at that time, were the key person in taking this our goals further. And with this, thank you very much for your patient hearing, and thank you very much. If any questions are there, please put the questions in comment box. My email ID is there. You can write to me, and I will try to answer your question as much as early as possible. Thank you so much.
Sir, you can click stop sharing now. Yes, sir. Very nice, wonderful, and informative lecture, sir. Uh, there was a question from my side.
Oh, yes.
A lot of infrastructure investment and so many things are required to set up this facility. So people
Right.
may have doubt in mind that how can I be benefited far away from Mumbai or in remote areas with these facilities? So it is not possible for them to set up it there. So I would like you to put some light on that.
Yes, absolutely. It is very much anything you start at the beginning, there is a issue with the infrastructure, issue with the cost. As you remember, when we start the our college, our alma mater, Bombay Veterinary College, was started in 1886. It was the first college in Asia, I think so. And there's a several places at the basis of need it was started at various places. Similarly, wherever there is a need is there, there is a will is there, and we can justify the program. The government will come forward, help that, and support that program. I will give one more example in this. In 2002, the first cyclotron in the country, which was started to produce the isotopes of medical importance in BARC in Tata Memorial Center. And in 10 years, 20 years now, there are more than 100 cyclotrons are there working at the various parts of the country. Yeah. So similarly, though in veterinary science, our progress is slightly slower than the human one, but definitely as and when required, there will be a will and wish and everything will come together. So that's not far off. And absolutely, now in our radiation treatment facility, people are coming from Delhi, Chennai, Hyderabad, Aurangabad, Baroda, you just name the place, people are coming there. So I think the scenario is, yeah.
Yeah. So as an a veterinarian, sir, if I
Hmm.
want to refer a case to you or
Hmm.
such a facility, so what preliminary investigations and conditions I have to check out?
Yes, it's very important kind of a thing. One most important thing is that the change in behavior of the animal itself is the most important thing. Yeah. Then is there any lump or any area is there which is growing very aggressively as a lump, growth, those things needs to be checked. And thanks to the lockdown period, thanks to hmm, thanks to the lockdown situation, we have gone to a telemedicine level now. We are consulting on email, on digital formats. So that can be very well used. So minimum basic requirement, vitals, you can send along with your queries, you can send it, and then we can decide what is best we can do for that patient.
गलदर सर तुमचं माईक बंद करा. Okay. Sir, to send samples, I think they have to send on ice.
Yes.
Yeah. So anybody requires to further, he can contact you for that. And I think not only Mumbai or area around Mumbai is benefited.
Yes.
Throughout India, cases are coming. People already have started. And as you have worked in Tata Cancer, lot of experience there, sir. You was a very active part in setting up our nuclear medicine center. You are also in contact and actively working with our cancer patients in our hospital, as well as you have your own facility at uh, New Mumbai also. So people can take help of you anytime they want. So I think with this, we are at the end of our webinar sessions now. Once again, thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful and informative lecture. Lot of information in in terms of pictures,
Thank
and you
thank
explained this thing. Uh, I will take this opportunity to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor of LUAS, as well as Honorable Vice Chancellors of MAPSU for giving us opportunity to organize such a webinar. I will also sincerely thank my Associate Dean, Mumbai Veterinary College for allowing us to organize this webinar and all possible permissions. Our thanks to President as well as Secretary of ISVM for providing the infrastructure we required for broadcasting these webinars. Further, I would like to thank Dr. Nilesh Sindhu and his team for their lot of work they have to do throughout preparation of these seminars as well as execution of these things. And I will also thankful to Dr. Kaustubh Garud, Dr. CN Galdar, Dr. Ravi Gaikwad sir, and Dr. PR Chaudhary sir for their wonderful lectures. And last but not least, I will thankful to all the participants who participated in these webinars and give their valuable questions, thoughts, contributions to improve the program. So thanks to all, and I think with this we are at the end of this session. Anybody want to add?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pawalkar, sir. Am I audible to all? Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much to one and all for active participation in this particular webinar of 2 days. I am thankful to our university authorities, our college authorities for permission. I am thankful to all the speakers for their nice presentation. I am equally thankful to the all participants for participating in this webinar. One thing I would like to mention, we are really apologizing for it means delay in some program and other thing. This is the technical issue in this COVID-19. At the same time, we are getting some facing some internet problem also. Because of that, we are unable to start and finish up the program on schedule type. I'm really apologizing for that also. Again, one important it means message I would like to pass. During the webinar, we have organized 4 lectures. If anyone having any doubt or query or any, it means questions in this webinar or for this particular 4 lecture, they are feel free to ask the question. They can drop their questions in Dropbox or comment box of ISPM Facebook page, or they can contact with the organizers. With this, I'm again thankful to all to make this webinar as a grand success. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, one more thing. I would like all who are participating to ask other their colleagues to go and see the presentations on ISM website. We may keep these presentations for another couple of days. So anybody interested then can come and visit the page and see this presentation.